The global food supply chain is part of the problem. It's so easy to get food from Asia, South America, wherever. That just kills the need to connect with the local suppliers.
We were the tuna capital of the world, and the large seiners left, and so fishing died. And there was nothing left here except a market fleet. We still remained here, but nobody saw us.
Well, the seafood sector in the U.S. is facing a lot of concurrent challenges. Trade challenges, competition on domestic markets for domestic seafood, and marketing is hard, and people don't know how to differentiate U.S. seafood from other seafood.
I started this whole journey on my pension from the military. The boat I was able to afford on the budget is smaller. It's a 25-foot boat, but the equipment is coming really close to the same price as the boat.
You know, I think a lot of people have a misperception that all fishing is bad, and that's really not correct. I think there's lots of good success stories in California in particular.
We realized right from the very first day, there's a huge demand for local fish, huge demand. This market allowed people to see that fishing exists in San Diego.
I got into fishing when I was about 10 years old. Now I own my own boat where we do sandy fishing, local sustained catch.
I have great respect for all of the fishermen in California who work in some of the most highly regulated fisheries in the world, and they do their part.
It's important to me personally to be connected to my food source, to know who's harvested it, where it came from.
We couldn't do our business without the farm and without the fishermen, and all of our locally sourced products. They're majorly important.
The market's done a tremendous deal for me. It gives me opportunity. Before, I would never talk to people. Now, I talk to anybody that walks by.
If you work with the community will support you. And without the community support, fishing won't exist.
Thanks, y'all. Local Ocean provides an insightful, earnest portrait of the struggles and value of seafood producers in the San Diego community. With this film, I hope to break down the prevailing public perception that all commercial fishing is destructive, industrial, and unsustainable. I've had this film in my head for over 2 years, since having an epiphany on the pool deck of a Holiday Inn. I was restarting for my captain's license, taking a sea survival class, where I met a local fisherman. He had just seen Seaspiracy and felt defeated by the inaccurate portrait it paints of his way of life. As he walked away, he lamented that those who went to sea were not the ones who made films. I've spent a decade at sea, climbing the ranks on ships and working with various fishers. I also have an undergrad degree in the arts focused on digital media and film. I realized that I had an opportunity to be that person, to tell the stories of local mariners, and began to apply to graduate school in earnest. The United States is a global leader in sustainable seafood, but the domestic fishing industry is threatened by cheaper imports, increasingly complex regulations, and rising operating costs. Nationally, the United States ran a $17 billion trade deficit in 2020. And in San Diego, less than 10% of the seafood consumed is domestically produced. Multiple studies have shown that consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable seafood, but they often don't know where to find it. Decades of biased media representation have spread misinformation and cast the commercial fishing fleet in a negative light. While there are ongoing examples of destructive practices around the world, these films miss the nuance of fishing by showing it as a monolith. What these films fail to show is that the continued existence of local, small boat, hook and line, and family fishers are operating as part of a fragile but important local food system. Even well-meaning environmentalists often flatten the complicated relationship that people have with the ocean to a false choice between conservation or destruction. There's plenty of research demonstrating the benefits of supporting domestic seafood. but it's challenging for consumers to navigate the sea of information. Negative press depicts fishers as shadowy figures. Science tries to prove otherwise with statistics, graphs, and written reports. In the turbulence of politically charged issues, such as sustainability and harvest, we have to offer human stories that break through the noise. We exist in a media ecosystem where monthly TikTok users outnumber readers of the journal Science more than 500 to 1. When done well, film can be a tool to reach out of the lab and tell stories that reflect both our values and our findings, and connect data with the struggles and successes of everyday people. As science tackles more global and more political problems, it needs community support more than ever. We need science communication to call people back in. I didn't want to make another film about the fishing community. I wanted to make a film with the fishing community. As a mariner myself, I felt a sense of responsibility to communicate the perils that face our oceans and the challenges facing the working mariner. The fishing community moves at the speed of trust. I knew that if I wanted to make a film in community, I would have to work hard to gain their confidence. I began meeting with fishers last summer and spending time at Tuna Harbor Dockside Market. Through a local fisher named Janelle Louie, I was able to connect with more harvesters. I spent many months walking the docks, sharing tacos, sharing beers, and some sea stories. Though 2 fishers appear in this film, many more spoke to me on background. I am so grateful for their insights. I conducted preliminary interviews in January and February, wrote a full film treatment in March, and began production in April. I conducted over 5 hours of interviews with experts. I also continued to visit the market to record verite footage and interact with customers. I filmed interviews on a borrowed Fujifilm X-T3 and recorded audio on a Tascam X8 with lavalier mics. My film centers around the journey of Jimmy Strait. He was born and raised in Imperial Beach and started working on fishing boats as a teenager before leaving to enlist in the Navy. While serving in the military, Jimmy was injured and now suffers from PTSD. By finding his way back to fishing and the ocean, he has been able to heal. I met Jimmy while buying fish from him and was struck by his story. I can't thank him enough for his courage and willingness to share his story on camera. And I hope the broader community can appreciate how fishing and food can heal both the individual and the community. The film also features Pete Halme, a veteran commercial fisherman. He also helped found the first California Fishermen's Market in San Diego. Cindy Quinones is a food activist and chef at Make Projects, which is an urban farm and restaurant that employs refugees to feed the local community. Sarah Schaffler is the national seafood strategist at NOAA and provides the big picture on seafood sustainability and the benefits of knowing your local suppliers. And John Ugritz is a pelagic fisheries and ecosystem program manager at California Fish and Wildlife, and he's in the film to speak directly to our success stories in California. So they're the hard skills: filming, editing, audio production, lots and lots and lots of editing. But often the soft skills are more important. The most important skill I learned through this project was the ability to pivot and reimagine the film's story arc as life happened. This film is about the lives of fishermen on screen, and people's lives are busy, complex, and sometimes tragic. By the time this film wraps, I will have attended 2 funerals for fishers and family members of the San Diego fishing community. Various personal emergencies meant other potential interview subjects were unavailable. Facing these challenges and a short filming timeline, I had to be willing to reconstruct my story arc while maintaining the intention of the piece. There's a saying that editing is 1,000 lies in service of the truth, and I crafted my storyline around the lived truth of the fishermen. When I set out to create this film, I wasn't sure what I would find, and to be honest, I was pretty nervous. I felt overwhelmed by the opacity of the seafood industry, and I was overwhelmed also by the issues that plague fishing communities and coastal communities in this country. But what I found was dedicated members of the community working together to strengthen our food system, uplift local producers, and support themselves and their families with honest, meaningful work. I don't know if I could have made this film before the pandemic, as it laid bare the issues with our industrialized food system and provided the time and space for a resurgent local food movement. To engage with the community, I plan to hold public viewing events. Some of my goals include submitting to Salty Cinema. Thank you, Loria, for organizing that. And partnering with organizations like San Diego Food Systems Alliance and even Tuna Harbor Dockside Market to facilitate some screening and seafood events. Additionally, I plan to ultimately distribute this film via social media so that more people can see it. And then I'm also going to make some short clips for Jimmy so he can promote his business on Instagram. I hope to continue to expand on this project. Seafood tells a story, and food is inherently political. My hope is that this film will lead to further appreciation for this unique local resource and additional investment supporting San Diego's ocean resources and those people who bring those benefits back to shore. Thank you so much to my capstone committee. Shout out to Adrienne. She just led her crew through a vessel fire in Alaska, and I'm so proud of her for keeping her passengers safe. Thank you very much to the fishing community. The reality is the creation of food is a labor-intensive process, and we must do more to better honor those who fill our plates. Thank you.
Hey, Biz, thanks for telling that important story about local fishermen and local communities. It made me wonder, though, what advice do you have for folks who live inland or who otherwise don't have easy access to local seafood?
Absolutely. So I wanted to get there in my film. Unfortunately, in 10 weeks, it's hard to cover everything. I think community-supported fisheries are really important. Co-ops, there's a lot of great subscription services out there. Just check it out, find one that resonates with you. Local Catch Network is a great resource to look those up. But I think the other piece of that is holding institutions accountable and making sure that they are sourcing their seafood sustainably. So schools, hospitals, whoever else is doing big orders of seafood. I'm looking forward to interviewing a fisher about nutritional assistance programs. So he's been able to get his fish certified through CalFresh and SNAP, so that otherwise people who wouldn't have access to this resource can.
Local fisheries and local fishermen and selling their product.
Okay, you mean like water quality?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question. So our government is working really hard to keep our environment clean, right? Like we are all working really hard to keep it clean. California has a pretty healthy ecosystem out there, and that translates directly into the product. So that would be a great reason to buy local.
For the seafood deficit, is that because the fish coming in is so much cheaper than the fish grown locally or caught locally?
Right, that's a big part of it. A lot of the seafood that is coming in from overseas is significantly cheaper. A big reason for that is labor. So obviously we live in the United States. We want to pay people fairly. That doesn't necessarily happen overseas. That's why a lot of that seafood can be a lot cheaper. I would say another reason for that is just our global supply chain. Like it's so much easier to just order things in bulk and say like, okay, like I want however many hundreds or thousands of pounds of shrimp, right? And we may not be able to get that on a local level yet.
What about the local export of our fish to other nations? Will you be covering exporting our fish on the California coast?
Yeah, I think that's something I would like to cover too. And I'm so glad you brought that up because we've lost a lot of our processing infrastructure in the United States. So oftentimes we will export fish to another country where it is processed, and then we will import it back into the United States, which seems kind of silly to me, and maybe something that I should look into more. Cool, thank you.